Welcome back to another chat with Leroy and Lori, Tug of Heart. Before we get going, um, I'm especially grateful to Strong Island Radio for hosting us. Today, we're going to chat a little bit about time. This is a very uncomfortable time. Um, Centuries are the windows of legacy, decades are the fabric of maturity. Years are the wine of vocabulary. Months nourish the people with crops. Weeks are close enough for enthusiasm. Days bring change. Hours are too much to bear when we miss someone. Minutes can save a life. And seconds, oh, the seconds. Our attitude can change in seconds if we choose. Now, I've just been absolutely consumed with time. And I called Lori, and, Tug of Heart is conversations about grief and joy. And I got to tell you right now, if your stomach is soft, this is absolutely an episode about grief. I am grief stricken. I am sad, and I have been consumed for the last week with time. The reason I'm consumed with time is because there are people at this moment that are living the last of their time. Of course, I'm talking about the challenges in Ukraine, and it's just got me feeling absolutely terrible. There's people that don't know it. Today's their last day, their last hour. And I'm not saying Ukrainians or Russians, both of them. And it's senseless. And we need to be grateful. We need to modify our perspective, because time is fragile beyond anything we can imagine. Hi, Lori.
Hi, Leroy. Feeling the same. How you doing besides that? Just
You
that,
know,
huh?
I got to be honest. I almost feel um, greedy, or I feel small, I should say, because my time, whatever it is, does not have the disruption or the challenges that I'm witnessing, and it's just making me absolutely sad inside. How about you?
I I feel just terrible for what's happening. On an emotional level, it's very hard to not. I think it's it feels impossible to approach because what we're witnessing counters the natural order of life itself. Um, and to
How
bring
so?
well, ours is to grow and to learn. When you're thinking about just time, it's a span that should afford man an opportunity to change, to come closer to who he wants to be, to to dream, and to fulfill who they and who we are made to be. And so when somebody's time is interrupted by another, it has a very unnatural feeling, because it seems to be that just abrupt end to what might have been, and you're left with that uneasiness. Time is life. This is why we say a lifetime. So you interfere with somebody's time, you have no right.
The I think where my thoughts were going over the last week were um, just the importance of constantly putting bows on time. Because time is not eternal; it's just time. And as I watched these children being loaded onto trains and begin a trek to Poland, or some safe haven. There are many men and women and children that are literally putting a bow on their time together, their time as they knew it, their time as a family unit. And that just struck me. It hurt. It hurt because that is the end of their time.
It potentially is. We never can say for sure because that remains a mystery to us. But for many of them, it will be. One of the things that I found while, in the throes of the end of time for Seth was when I would speak to other parents who've lost children. The parents who had a window of time to like put a bow on it, like you said, would say, we are so blessed that we had that time to know what we had and to spend it well and to do this. The parents who lost children suddenly that I interacted with during that time also would say, we're so blessed. We did not have that time, that time of uncertainty and suffering and the angst of the inevitable. It just happened, and so there wasn't that helplessness before. And so I think it makes you think, how can both of these be this true, right? Because one of the things we find in time is these seemingly opposite things. Because you just said now time is finite, basically. But then there's also the thinking that there is eternal time. There is a place outside of time. And so there's two ways of thinking about it. I don't want to get too far into that, but it's just to say that perspective with reflection seems to assist both situations. It's no consolation for what today for these people, except to say that time also can change things towards good.
I think I was looking at it more from a point, and you're not wrong. I mean, that's beautifully put. But I was looking at it more from a point that time as they knew it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that was a family dynamic, whether that was being welcomed by the comfort and familiarity of your home. Time is uncertain now.
Right.
Communication, time, and there are some people that will be reunited. They will, but there's a lot that won't. There's a lot that the last time to help their child with their homework, it passed. And those are realities. I mean, it's hard. I've just been consumed by this. But I remember, because we were in communication a lot during Seth's battle, and I was saying it yesterday, but I said it as just to be polarizing to the what was up when you were asking for input from listeners about time, and I said to hold it hostage, love like you never loved before and snap a picture. And then I realized I really do believe that, because when you were going through this, I remember I packed up some video cards and some batteries and a video camera, and I mailed it off to you, and it seems so weak now, that you can keep time at bay or preserve time, and replay the reels. But just an absolutely gut-wrenching experience, which is embarrassing to say, because we're not there. We're not going through what these folks are going through, and it just absolutely gets me. It guts me right now.
It's very hard to sort through all of it. I will say, when you had given us the video camera, and the gesture that you did it also is one of those ways where you can mark time. And there's this idea where, if for those that believe in eternal life after after the end of time, that when we reach a place in time and here of real happiness, we've touched eternity. So we have those little glimpses of it in the form of memories. And so I think what you're saying is exactly right, because so any videos or pictures I have of Seth, it's not, I have feelings as a mom, and and it does pull, raise that reaction in me that any mom would have. But there's something more to it, in a sense that it's not seeing what I had. When I see pictures of Seth from before, it's also seeing what I believe I will have again. Or I remember that I was given a time in my life where I got to see what it can be like. And that's, I think, when we mark memories. And I think what we can do, because we can't control how much time we do have. We're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised a long life. At least in my experience, I don't remember ever being promised anything like that. But what we can control is how we use time, which is tapping into it in a different way, where we don't say, like, what time is it? I got to do this, I got to do that. But you say, what time is it for right now? And it can kind of make, and to me, when I do that, it can kind of shift me into that heart space. And I started thinking of this. This is a newer thought. That's why I'm a little clumsy saying it. When we first began talking, you and I, and you would talk about going camping, and you would say, I can't explain it. But there's these moments that you capture where you are serene, you are not a slave to time, and that is your way of marking time. It doesn't need to be the same for everybody, but that is your way, and you have found quite an effective way to do it. And I think you do get that glimpse, and I think that's why you return to it.
There's something to be said about that, but time is time, and keeping track of time is really for a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because our time, we don't monitor it. We just know we have to be back by a certain time.
Right.
Generally not for us, because given, a well-financed life, and a very, responsible, for those that are incredible stewards, and those that are just savvy and smart and thrifty, the time is kind of irrelevant. It's we mark time with activities, not a clock. But and that goes for anything. For me, it happens to be camping. For other people, it's writing. Other people, it's painting, playing music, playing the piano, or the most noble, being of service to others. Because
that's the highest good, yeah.
Right, time kind of stands still. But there's also, and I think the part that really gets me, or has got me over the last week, is time in terms of blocks of time. Not the ticking of a clock, but our time together.
Right.
well, that was a block of time when you and Seth were together. That was your time together. And then philosophically, the time had come, or it was the end of your time together. And that's the one that is, we can lose an hour, and we lose an hour. We can lose a day, and we lose a day. And when I started, kind of wrote that little thing this morning, it's like, it's our attitude, because our attitude, and I can't speak for other people. I guess for me, it really seems foolish as I see all these people, holding on to their time together, their time on earth. And then that's why I finished with seconds, because in a second we can change our attitude. We can, if we choose to, you can take an argument, a spirited debate, whatever you want to call it, and you can just, you have the time. And it's literally just changing it and refusing myself. I don't want to win anymore. Mm-hmm. What I want is, I want a bigger win, and that win to be peaceful and enthusiasm for my marriage. Not that I don't have it, but I really feel like have it differently, more. I don't want to waste a minute. Not a minute, not a second, not a week, not a day, not a week, not a month, not a year, not a decade. And I don't want it to be like, man, I get, maybe this is more about regret than time, but I don't want to miss anything.
I think, starting with what you said about how some people are afforded more time because they've been a particular kind of steward over finances, work, whatever, or circumstantially fortunate, a lot of times. But we have to keep in mind that there is something to be said about being a steward of time as well. Mm-hmm. And so when you have it, using it well, but also second by second, say a father has not used his time well, okay? So many mistakes, and we're human. That is part of what would define what it is to be us, is just to mess around, misuse time for a lot of our time quite often. But then in a second, things change. Say you're in Ukraine and at the train station. And I do believe in that moment that many fathers chose to be a steward of time, and they pushed their children onto a train towards the future with more time. And that is the same as, in terms of what you can do with time, there's nothing more valuable we can do with any asset we have whatsoever than to give it, and to even to the level of sacrificial, if need be. And I think in that moment when they connected into this major event, they did touch on that different kind of time. And it's not how anybody would have it, but even with a second, people can find a way to mark time in a way so powerful and meaningful, those kids will forever take those stories. We've heard them. This happens just as we're losing our very last Auschwitz and Holocaust survivors. Mm-hmm. That we will have now people to carry this tale that is just repeats itself. There's always somebody that is lost to remind the world that this happens. And I'm not justifying any of this or trying to make it to make it somehow softer for us. It's horrible. It's horrible. That's why we're here talking about it. But I think they have done the best with the circumstance they've been given in a very noble way, like you said. And I think the other thing is a lot of times it can be a more difficult choice to live day to day in that way than it can when you're at that pivotal point and you have a choice. I can live or die for somebody. And you say, I'm going to give my life, you go. Versus, I will live for somebody. And day after day, getting up and repeating that cycle again, 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 and not forgetting with the same intensity. Nobody can match what they did in the last moment. And yet, if you say you will live, would it not be with the same fervor? And that's where time, I think, is a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it can make us better. We can use time and become stronger, better, do more good. And on the other hand, when we choose not to, same thing happens to us that happens to a ship that doesn't sail, or a building that's just in the middle of nowhere. It falls apart, it dilapidates. And so it's, again, it's not comfort, but at least I feel like there is a level of preservation, that they are marked forever in that duty, where it's very hard to also mark yourself in duty when you're left here to repeat it over and over.
It's as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and thinking about all of these things, it hits me. Zelensky just became a time traveler.
Yes.
He will arrive at a future date. Whether if he makes it or he doesn't, he's going to arrive at a future date and have traveled through time, and his name will be uttered again.
Absolutely.
It's as with all of these people. I mean, they're all heroes.
I want to say,
all heroes.
When this first started unfolding, one of the first things that I pictured that I hadn't before is when you had said, what is it to have this massive army and one guy with a stick? Do you remember when we first began? It's one of the first things you said.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that says, no, I'm not turning anyways. And that he ends up standing for more in the end. I don't remember verbatim how you said it, but do you remember telling us that?
I do.
Can you expand on it again for me, just so I can tap into it? Because I just had that visual where they are the ones becoming more, not the giant.
Well, Zelensky is that guy, because he is, he is that guy that will stand in the field, against in impossible odds. That it's not even worth calculating the likelihood of survival. And and I remember when I was telling you that story, I said, he may as well just tell Putin, if you get me, all you've done is kill a man.
Exactly. Yes.
That's all you did. You killed a man. But what my patriotism, my love for my people, the people of my country, you can't kill that. I mean, and that's what I mean about he became a time traveler, because that's the stuff of legends.
And he somehow came transcendent, because he has entered into everybody's hearts, starting with his own people, and just lit them aflame with a passion that many people have said, like just before this, they were crying and scared. And just like that, like you said, in a second, what can happen? Because fear is contagious. Lack of enthusiasm is, but so is enthusiasm. So is goodness. And I think good is more contagious. When you're around it, it's very potent what he did.
This is absolutely the story of David and Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you're talking about a military push that is modern, that is financed by a nation, controlled by a man dead set on expanding territory. It's just yeah. I mean, he is definitely he will be immortalized through his love of his country, for sure. I think it's just sad. This whole thing is sad, and my mind is going in a million different directions. And you
So,
know,
what would you say as a fellow father, regardless of what happens to him? Like, how would another man help propel that message forward in time if he finds himself unable to? How do you think it can reach America through people that have just witnessed it? As a witness, what could you and others do? And then us. But I'm just saying, man to man, to see a guy do that,
we're literally talking about it, and that
That's it, right? It's the retelling for
all you can. I
starters.
mean, we're acknowledging what he's done, and there are only a few people that can emulate the bravery, and there's only a few. I mean, what he's doing. There's a big difference between, being tucked away neatly in Moscow or wherever your situation room is, and sending out, your theater to, you know, play on the world stage and, conquer, versus a man who is there and he said, I'm not telling you to protect this earth while I bark instructions from Poland. No, I'm going to be here. He literally said, I'll likely die. You know, in all likelihood, he will.
Yeah, and I think people.
But
I think when people are called upon so often, they rise to the occasion, and I in a sense, horrible things in life, and like just horrible thefts of time, also elevate us to a place where we become closer to that other kind of time that's outside time that doesn't end. No ending to it. There's this quote from Buddha that says, "All we are begins with our thoughts. It moves with our thoughts, and it ends where our thoughts end." And I think in this sense, he has stayed true to himself. And that's one of those things where there's pivotal moments in life where you can undo a whole lot of minor misjudgments of time or character by being given these choices and saying, this is who I am. And just your focus and aim just stays right on the same thing. And in the continuum of time, you still get to be this person, even though many times before you may have fallen short. But it's who we end up being ultimately through our whole continuum. And that's why I was saying that it can be very hard when we get what feels like a do-over or plenty of time, we can squander it terribly when we have it. A lot can be learned from him and from his people. And I think we just have to remember too, they are so unique because of what they've done, but we are made distinct in the same way that they are. We have that same heart, and we have a source of courage and strength should the moment come. And the only reason I say that, not for you, but for anybody listening, because when people are younger, there's more likelihood of fear of death and fear of life and all of that. But with time, I think we do start to realize that things that happened are not so much positive and negative as they are kind of the natural course of how things go. And it becomes more important who we are and who we choose to become and who we will not stop being, no matter if our seconds are threatened. Our life is threatened down to seconds. And that, who could say ideally they would trade a second more of life for a principled existence, and to be able to say that.
You know, it's as you're saying this, you know, because time is clearly, I mean, we can all agree that it is our most precious commodity.
Hmm.
Without time, you know, I mean, time to think, time to love, time to sing, time to dance, time to work, time to play. And I can tell you this, you know, whatever's going on over there, and I am not qualified to speak intelligently. This is just about your heart, you know. But the way I see it, you know, we've got, you know, an overzealous dictator trying to gobble up more land. You know, in the end, it's sad, and he may ultimately govern over Ukraine, and he's going to be governing over a pile of rubble. You know, but what's more is, as we talk about time, you know, this is so heinous and so sinister that the globe would have Zelensky live forever, and Putin couldn't, his time couldn't expire fast enough for the globe. I'm talking about the
Right.
entire world. Even his, you know, members of his own population are actively, you know, being arrested because it is, they are rooting for the president of the Ukraine. You know, I mean, it just
That
mind
is
blowing.
that's the power of a voice who is lined up with their heart. It perpetuates throughout the world. I just want to add, not as a criticism, but for consideration, that in the same window of time, no matter where we are, in the West, in the East, very near them or very far, we're all presented with a choice as well. And I'm not in any position to say what should happen or should not, on especially a political level, but on a personal level, we're all given this same window to choose how we respond to what we're seeing. It's no less important. And our time is also measured. And it's not to say, oh, I'm going to go sign up and help Ukraine, but could we do something that maybe a dad won't get a chance to do out there for our children, for a stranger? If we cross an orphan, could we be kind? If we cross a widow, should we be a little kind? A little extra, because God alone knows how that situation came to be. And we have now witnessed it and have made that connection with people, you know, across the world, where we are so moved by what they're doing. To what end, though? Is it just until it's over and the next thing is on TV for us? Or can we say, I will never forget how widows and orphans are made, and when I see them, I will do right by them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if
Beautiful.
even if they are made with less noble ways, we feel that pain, and we should. That's when you see these really bad things that you kind of, the bad pain that's worth hanging on to, and I think it is in this case.
Wow. Yeah. It's you know, we're knocking on the door of our time together for this conversation, and I got to tell you, it's just sobering. It's
It's
just
tough. Oh my gosh,
it
Leroy, it's
it is
heartbreaking.
sobering, and you know, you know, tug of heart is conversations about grief and joy, and I'm going to tell you that the climate during this conversation is one of absolute grief, and I think that we share the feeling of most people, you know, that are aware of what's going on, and you know, time is precious, Lori. It is so precious. I'm not telling you something you don't know. I'm saying it for my own, you know, vocal benefit. I
Those
hear
of us
myself
that are
say it.
left to remain after we see things like this, or our own family, when their time is fulfilled, these lessons repeat themselves over and over. There's there's injustices that take lives every day. We only need to be willing to see it.
Hmm.
And sometimes it happens and we don't have a hero in it. We still need to have the same heart for them.
For everybody listening, ask questions, post questions. We want to talk about it. Um, our time is done
Okay.
today, and I ask you to pray. I ask you to pray for the people that are raining down on the Ukraine that don't agree, but they are loyal. And I don't know how to size that up. Their loyalty is absolute, and maybe they're going against their own heart. I got to tell you, I pray for them,
Yeah.
and I pray for the victims, thousands by now already in Ukraine, and I just I just ask that we all take some moments and that we hug and love one another because we have that time. We don't know how much of it we have, but we have it right now. When you hear this, when you think it, you still have time.
That's right.
And
And
that
we're
is
we're
time
in it.
denied to a lot of people.
That's right. And how what will you choose to do with it?
Lori, that's it. That's all I got. Take us
Until
out.
next time, goodbye.
Adios.